So far, you've explored how properties are used in classes and structures to store values where class or structure instances are used. But did you know there is more than one property type? Swift offers two types of properties, stored and computed properties. And over the next few minutes, you'll learn about the key difference between them. Throughout your learning journey, you came across different scenarios where stored properties were used for storing values to class and structure instances. More specifically, you encountered two stored property variations, namely constant stored properties and variable stored properties. Recall that to create a constant stored property in a class, you use the keyword let, and for a variable stored property, you use var. Each stored property can be provided with a default value, or you can use an initializer to set the initial value of stored properties. So, what about a computed property? What would you use it for? Unlike a stored property, a computed property calculates a value and then returns the result of the property declared type, almost like a function with a return value type. And whereas a stored property can be read and written to, a computed property is read-only. Whenever you need to encapsulate a block of computational code or calculate a value more than once, you can use a computed property. Let's move on to a demonstration of creating a computed property in a class. I have created a menu class with mains, drinks, and desserts stored properties. Each of the stored properties is of type string array. It would be convenient to have a menu items count computed property that allows me to calculate the number of menu items available across the main, drink, and dessert categories on the menu at once. To begin creating the menu items count computed property, I type var menu items count. Then I declare the computed property as type integer. The computed property body will return an integer for the menu items count. This is because the declared computed property type is an integer. Inside the computed property body, which is between the curly braces, I create three constants: mains count, drinks count, and dessert count to store the menu items counts from each category. I broke down the code into multiple lines to make the calculation easier to reason about. In addition to using multiple lines, I can also use a single expression if I want to write more succinct code. For a single expression, I can omit the return keyword for a shorter line of code. Instead of separating the menu items count into three separate constants for the three categories, I will first remove the current computed property body content. Then, I simply type mains.count plus drinks.count plus desserts.count. This is an example usage of a single expression inside a computed property body. I've demonstrated the creation of a computed property in a class. It's also worth noting that the process and logic behind creating a computed property in a class also apply to a structure. You've now learned how a computed property calculates and returns a value of the computed property type and how to create computed properties inside a class. And while stored properties are more commonly used, you learned that computed properties are especially useful to perform calculations. As a result, you now have another tool under your belt that can be used for the right job.